Today, aka Powders, we're discussing the devil all the time. From one of the great actors of our time, maybe the greatest actor of our time, Robert Pattinson, from the greatest studio of our time, maybe of all time, Netflix. This movie came out in 2020. It also stars Tom Holland. It also stars Bill Skarsgård. This is a stacked cast. This movie is so legit. I'm angry I have to do an episode with the intent to bring it to light, because no one talked about this movie when it came out and no one's discussing it now. Very common with these Netflix features. This movie is fantastic. It is a true American epic. Let's go.
Quiet on the set.
Camera speed.
Sound production. Take one.
Action.
My original intro for this was I'm going to give you guys 3 controversial opinions. One was Robert Pattinson is the greatest actor of our time. 2 was Netflix is the greatest film studio of our time. And 3 was Robert Pattinson is in the greatest Harry Potter movie of all time, The Goblet of Fire. Welcome back to everything, aka Patters. Welcome back to film discussion, film critiques of film critiques, the Film Buff Podcast. This is where, we just go through my obsessiveness. I just love movies. I love sitting down, talking to movies with all of you. Digging around for some of those veins, some of those roots, some of those crevices. Do you remember when you were a kid? I don't know if you ever did this, where you would just dig sometimes, and you would find like baby roots, and you couldn't even see the tree they were coming from. You didn't even know where the roots were coming from, but they were like webbed, and they were almost like elastic, and you couldn't even pull them apart. That's what I do with film. I don't quite have to do that this time. If you like A Place Beyond the Pines with Bradley Cooper, Ryan Gosling, this movie is a West Virginia version of that. Korean War, West Virginia. This is a period movie that might be the best period movie I have seen in quite some time. There is not an ounce of time that you don't believe you're in this time. It's amazing. We have other, we got other, this movie's just so stacked. We got so many people in this movie. We got Jason Clarke, John Connor, if you guys remember Terminator Genesis. Jason Clarke is the best of all the John Connors. He plays a serial killer, and he is one demented loon. We have Daniel Riley Koga. She's Sebastian Stan, the Winter Soldier. His sister, she's tied up with the serial killer. As similar with Beyond the Pines, I believe that came out, might have been 2010, 2011. The whole point of A Place Beyond the Pines is fate. It might take us 2 or 3 generations for a particular fate to emerge. It's very Magnolia too. If you guys are familiar with Magnolia, where we have a narration and we're told things that happened 100 years ago that lead into some of the events unfolding. It's a little bit like shortcuts. There's a lot of movies. This is a filmmaker's technique. It's a storyteller's technique. And when it works, it's as effective as anything. The story for both of these movies, for The Devil All the Time and The Place Beyond the Pines, is the fate of someone. We're going to boil down a moment, a split-second decision, a reaction, something potentially unintended, but we're there, meaning there's violence. We're here. We don't want to be here. We don't have to be here, but circumstances and maybe like an uncontrollable force of nature brought us here. Both of these movies hit this idea home. I don't know what we call this class of movie or this genre, but it's something to pay attention to, and it's definitely something to identify along the way. If we get to Robert Pattinson plays someone, spoiler, he gets shot in this movie, and you're so happy for it, just because he's broken. He's a pasture. His voice, his accent. The second he's on screen, you don't know it's Robert Pattinson. You don't know it's him. He does this in every single movie. I wanted to go through the filmography of Robert Pattinson. We do that sometimes for some of these episodes. I have to do that on a separate episode. Antonio Campos. I reviewed Air. He did Air. Wonderful Oscar bait movie. I don't know why this movie really wasn't in the front running for any awards. It's beyond me. But Antonio Campos somehow went back in time to shoot this movie. This movie feels backcountry. This movie feels of another age. There's a flashback to the Korean War. I might be a little bit off. It might be WW2. Maybe it's the Korean War. But we're in the 40s. We're in the 50s. And Tom Holland's father comes across him and a squad of soldiers. They come across a crucified U.S. military, like U.S. Marine or U.S. Army Corps. And it's just horrific, and the guy's still alive, and then they have to shoot him, and like the camera pops back, but it really spares no frame in the violence. The serial killer, we don't know exactly what they're doing, but they're taking pictures, they're creepy, the girl's in on it, and it looks like that they mutilate individuals, they embarrass them, they get them drunk, hang around with a pretty girl, and they take pictures and do other things. This is Sebastian Stan's sister that's involved with this. Throughout the movie, we see Sebastian Stan move up through the ranks and essentially become sheriff. He ends the movie wearing a white shirt. Everyone involved in this movie is not of a role you would relate them to, meaning we don't think Tom Holland's, again, his voice, his accent is so dead on. We're not imagining Tom Holland as Peter Parker, Spider-Man, or we're not imagining the Winter Soldier with Sebastian Stan or John Connor with Jason Clarke. This movie fires on all cylinders. It deserves every single ounce of your attention. I'm kind of sick of seeing Netflix movies and saying that they should have got attention. They should have been more popular, and they should have had an Oscar run. This is a drama. This is a American drama. It's a West Virginia American drama set in the 40s, set in the 50s. You think you're there, you feel it. There's a lot that comes through with these frames of film. There's a lot to admire, there's a lot to understand, and there's a lot to watch. This movie is rewatchable, and this movie should be rewatchable. Anyone out there that wants to pretend that these movies don't exist or haven't been produced on Netflix and that the best in the world aren't working there, you need to just check yourself at this point. You really need to analyze what you're doing when we talk about movies. Because what we do here is we watch films and we bring them to you. That's what Team AKAPAD does. That's what the AKAPAD Army does. We have effort. We have individuals. We have a network that wants these movies to get more attention, to get brought to a different light. The popularity of this podcast and your cooperation makes that happen one lesson at a time. So wherever you're listening on this, and we are on every single available network, period. I thank you, but the fight goes on. This movie, go watch it. Go watch it right now. The drama is horrific enough to where you're almost in a horror movie because it feels that real. AKA Padders, go check out The Devil All the Time. Available right now on Netflix.
Okay, that's a wrap.